This is probably a paddle of the year candidate, or honestly, it could probably be the paddle of the year for 2025. Hey there guys, welcome back to Pickleball Paddle Reviews, and today's 10-hour review will be of the RPM Friction Pro. If it's your first time watching one of my 10-hour reviews, I play with these paddles for about 10 hours or more to kind of get a full picture of how they play out and any quirks that develop over time. I think most of the time after 10 hours, you really do know if a paddle is good or right for you. So let me give you a little bit of detail about RPM. RPM is the brainchild of pro James Ignatowicz as well as his team. They wanted to develop a paddle that James would really like playing with. So the Friction Pro was what came out first for them, and honestly, this is a great first paddle to come out from that company. James has really been hustling. If you follow RPM on Instagram at all, you'll know that he's been traveling around demoing these everywhere he can and just getting them into as many people's hands as possible. And for good reason, because this is definitely very, very good. So let's talk about the paddle very quickly. The Friction Pro is a Gen 3.5 paddle. So that means it has a floating core with the two nodules on the bottom to help with weight and balance. So it gives you a more stable hit as well. Now, other paddles that use this technology are the Thrive Fury, the JOOLA Pro 4, and a few other paddles also probably have this technology, but those are the only ones that come to the top of my head. And this paddle does play very similar to that. It does have a difference with the CFC face layup. So this is where I think the direction changes between JOOLA and companies like RPM and Thrive. They ended up using a CFC layup that kind of counters that extra dwell time you get from the floating core with a little bit of deflection. And I think that is going to be the future of these 3.5 style paddles with the CFC layup. Now, another thing, if you know what RPM stands for, which is rotations per minute, the grit face on this is probably very close to the legal limit. It is very gritty, so you can definitely shape the ball very well with this paddle. And it does still deteriorate quite quickly, just like most carbon faces, but because this starts off so gritty, it does hold it a little longer than I expected. So I'm gonna throw up the stats of the paddle. The RPM Friction Pro currently comes in 14 or 16 millimeter and in a elongated or wide body shape. So for my first impressions, I really liked how this paddle looks. It's pretty simple and clean. They are very similar in the look of a JOOLA without the coloring of the JOOLA. They even have a very similar butt cap, which was very surprising for me. These start out at $250. With code, it brings it down 15%. So it is a premiumly priced paddle at $212, I believe, after code. But they do play like one of the top paddles. So I do think the price kind of accounts for that. So when I first started playing with this, I actually hit with a 14 millimeter. First, I have the 16 and 14 elongated, but when I first tried it, I tried a demo at my local center. They had a 14 millimeter, and I thought that the 14 millimeter actually has pretty good dwell time for a thinner paddle. And it was quite easy to pocket the ball, kind of shape the ball. Resets and drops were very easy with the paddle. And it felt just very stable. It felt like exactly what I wanted the paddle to feel like. Because using something like the JOOLA Pro 4 or even the Thrive Fury, it does feel like those paddles are just a touch too poppy. So these brand spanking new, feel absolutely amazing. The RPM has this very nice blend of power where it's very linear and you feel like you're getting the most out of a lot of your hits. And also you do get a lot of power absorbing into the paddle, but deflecting enough for your drops and resets. Now, I usually don't talk about this part in first impressions because you usually don't get to it until a few hours in, but I did notice these RPMs heat up very fast. As you play with them, it feels like they become very powerful very quickly. So that initial feeling of great hits were starting to kind of become rocket launchers quite quickly. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing for most people. They will feel like this paddle becomes very, very powerful and, might be inclined to like it even more. For me, it's kind of like a love-hate relationship. I do like that extra power you get from it heating up, but I also really, really thought the initial hits were more like chef's kiss than after it heats up. So let's talk about ground strokes. Serves, drives, doing backhands, overheads, all of those, they feel great on this. They bounce off the paddle with a lot of power. The power is very linear, and because there's extra grit over the JOOLA Pro 4, it's even easier to shape the ball. I felt like in the beginning, I was able to get very, very strong angles with this, especially on the serves and drives. Over time, as it heated up, it became a little more risky to do those kinds of shots. So I will say that my ideal platform on this was when it first arrives as a brand new paddle without it heating up. But even after it heats up, it's still very good at placing the ball for those drives. I also really enjoyed the feedback you get from this paddle. It's very reminiscent of the Thrive. The Thrive has like a little bit more pop than this paddle, but the feeling between the two are very similar. Quite obviously because they have the Gen 3.5 core, and also they both share a CFC layup. In hand, I think the RPM does feel slightly more stable than the Thrive Fury, so I do like this one a little bit more because of that. Another thing I really love about the RPM is how you can really pocket the ball for serves and drives. So you can really put a lot of spin on your ground strokes. Balls from this are dipping a lot, and it feels like it's quite easy to do on these paddles. Now, heading into the soft game, this is where this paddle really shines. You get a lot of control. You can definitely hit very good resets and drops with this. It feels extra stable in hand compared to something like the Thrive or the JOOLA. It's just a touch more stable than those paddles. And because of that CFC layup, it has more consistent bounce off the face than something like the JOOLA. The Thrive also is very good like this paddle for that, but I think this is just a touch less poppy, so you get more consistency in those drops and resets. For dinking, you get an even better experience than the Thrive and the JOOLA. And don't get me wrong, the JOOLA and the Thrive are very good paddles. This is just doing those things that those paddles can do slightly better. And I think it's a combination of all the things that are put together in this paddle that make it feel just that touch better than those. Another thing I love about this RPM is the kitchen game. So for volleys, for dinks, everything in between, this paddle feels so stable. It's very easy to reset the paddle when you're in those fast hands battles or when you're setting up dinks. So what do I think about the RPM Friction Pro? I think this paddle plays absolutely amazing. It's great for ground strokes, it's great for soft game, it's great for volleying and playing at the kitchen. But I do have some legitimate concerns. It's heating up very quickly. I've heard some people tell me that theirs have core crushed, and that is a very common issue for Gen 3 paddles, but at the rate that this is heating up, it does concern me. Once it does heat up quite a bit, it will be harder to keep those drives in, keep like that consistent hit on drops and resets. And I think RPM has taken some action because they've noticed some of these things by increasing their warranty period to 12 months and doing things that really are customer focused. So I do believe in the company, but it is a note of concern for that heating up issue. Otherwise, this is the best Gen 3.5 paddle that I've tried so far this year. And honestly, a very good candidate for paddle of the year. Thanks for watching, guys. That's my review of the RPM Friction Pro. If you do want to check it out, I'll have the affiliate links down below, as well as code PBWooly15 to make this paddle a little cheaper. And if you like this kind of content and you want to follow, be sure to subscribe and like this video. Thanks for watching.